That's why I was asking. Yeah.
I'm going by the rest of the time.
I got it 4 times. Yeah, I got it 3, actually. I don't know how I just.
Oh, that's probably why I do.
That was yesterday. Good morning.
All right, Verizon is telling me it's 7 o'clock. So I'd like to call the public hearing to order for the planning board warrant discussion. And anybody that wants to speak, please sign the sign-in sheet here, which would be very helpful. And similar to the public hearing we had 2 days ago, it's the same process. Please address all comments and questions to the chair. Please do not address each other directly or have any side conversations, and identify yourselves before you speak. So I'm supposed to read the text of the notice, which is this, that has been posted outside. It's pretty short. The planning board will hold a public hearing to discuss proposed 2025 warrant articles at the Brookfield town offices on Wednesday, January 29 at 7 p.m. The proposed warrant articles can be viewed here. And there's a website, which I don't know if anybody has looked at ahead of time, but there's a handout. Do you need one?
No, I got some.
We're good? Okay. There's a handout, and we have 4 amendments to talk about. I think we're going to divide, we'll just go through them one by one. I think it's probably, we can divide them and group them together, but I think it's easier just to do one at a time. And let's start with the first one. The intention of this first amendment is to clarify the 5-acre minimum lot size language that changed last year from 2 acres to 5 acres. So there's some confusion depending on who you talk to. If you had a 3-acre lot or a 4-acre lot, is that grandfathered? Can you still develop it? And what we're trying to do here is add the, if you look under where it says the First Amendment is this, we're adding the last sentence of that 2A, which says any lot which legally existed as of March 12, 2024 may be developed without complying with the 5-acre minimum lot size. So essentially that date is last year's town meeting when this warrant article passed. And it's essentially grandfathering anything that would be between 2 and 5 acres legally existing as of that date, or obviously prior. Are there any questions or comments from the public on that? John?
John Roth. How many plots is that grandfathered?
I don't have the answer to that. We could get that. It's a matter of going through like every tax, every plot, every lot, and looking at the frontage. It's a pretty Herculean task to do that.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to figure out, are there any large developments that had pre-purchased but not developed yet that all of a sudden have a lot of houses on it? Or these discrete lots here scattered here and there?
I believe it's more scattered lots. Tim, do you have any idea on that? I think we looked at something along those lines, but I'm not sure if it was for that or the next one.
I'm Tim Straz. I used to sit in that chair last year.
Sorry, glad you came to the meeting.
Yeah. Really, the idea of the 5-acre minimum was for subdividing. There are lots of large lots in town, and was anticipating whether or not somebody took a 100-acre lot and decided to divide it up 2-acre lots. And so we were trying to create and maintain our rural lifestyle here, which if you look at any other rural zoning within our Carroll County in our region, the minimum lot size is 5 acres. It's not 2 acres. So we're trying to stay in step with our neighbors. and also maintain the rural nature of this town.
There's also the non-hydric rule, which is basically wetlands, you can't, that wouldn't be included.
Right, so if I could address towards that,
Sure.
what I'm trying to find out is, were there a bunch of those 100 acres that were already divided into two
There were
that are
not.
sitting
No.
out there that would be grandfathered?
No.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
But there are certainly people that have 4-acre lots, and that would be grandfathered.
Yeah, we were more worried
Whereas
that there were a bunch of
it
these
was
100
unclear
acre ones
if they
that had
would-
already slipped in right ahead of time.
No.
Okay.
It was just unclear if somebody with a 2 to 5 acre lot would have had to go to get a variance from ZBA. So we just wanted to clarify that. Frank?
Yeah, Frank Frazier, Lyford Road, and I used to sit in that chair 15 years ago, for a number of years. I have two issues with this. One, it's really not necessary. If you own a lot of record, you have a presumption that you can build on it. Now, there might be other things, it might have become a wetland in the time since you bought it, between the time, there are other things that might have happened to it that impact your ability to build on it, but the size of it is not, and that's case law, been things. We have a home up on Stoneham Road that was built, again, memory slipping, 7-8 years ago, that's on a 1-acre lot. And wow, how can they build on a 1-acre lot? Because there was a lot of record dating back to the 60s, I think. And there's also, somewhere in the zoning, I didn't look it up this evening, there's a line that said, to answer your question, the line said that any lot of record prior to 1978 or whenever it was when we adopted zoning is presumed to be buildable on. So, and that's state law, that's a state RSA that protects that. So you can't come in and slap zoning and all of a sudden have a whole bunch of people who thought they could build on a lot that they can no longer build on a lot. So the second issue, so it's really not necessary. The second issue that I have with it, and again this goes to a fair amount of experience I have with wording zoning articles and seeing what happens when you word them one way and then all of a sudden a lawyer reads them a different way. And that happens a lot. And that is the may be developed. Putting the words may be developed in the zoning means, hey, if you own a lot before March of 2024, you can develop it. Even though it's very narrow, it's in this paragraph, and our attorney could probably argue, no, what was really meant. It's really wording such as, and I need to ask you, have you had our town attorney look at this wording yet or not? She was okay with it?
That's her language.
If she was okay with it, then, I'm not going to make a big deal about it, but I would have worded it like, does not have to comply with the 5-acre or something like that, rather than the may be developed. Those are the two issues I have with that one.
That's a fair point, thank you.
And it does make it clearer, but it should be clear anyway. And it is clear to anybody that knows real estate law, or knows the RSA's in the state.
Yeah, I think the intention was to clarify, it may not be necessary, but we have had feedback that, do I have to go to the ZBA to develop this 4-acre lot that I have?
Yeah.
So I think it just clarifies.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I think I would be in favor of changing that language.
Or you could say it's buildable, right?
Again, that's
Yeah.
the same ballpark.
Yeah.
It implies,
Your intent here is that if it was a lot of record before March 9th, 1924,
Right.
it has to comply with whatever it was when it became a lot of record, but it had to have done that when it became a lot of record in the first place. That's why the whole thing really is not necessary.
We'll go back to the lawyer and look at that. Just one other thing, and the former chairman can maybe correct me, but technically we don't need to give you guys right now the warrant article language.
Right.
We're supposed to read the amendment, get the feedback, and then we can write that afterwards. We're just in the interest of transparency, we cleared out here that this is what it would look like. So the warrant language is definitely subject to change. This is not the warrant that's going to appear on the ballot in March. Any further questions on this one?
just a comment, just to agree with Frank on this first point. I mean, all this zoning, whenever we enacted, is from that point forward. It's not backwards. And it's common understanding. I mean, you could look at any of the items within the zoning and debate whether or not they are applicable going forward or back based on timing. So I kind of agree with him that I don't see the need to have that language at the end.
Okay. Granted, I'll give you that. Personally, I think it helps. Okay, First Amendment, I think we're done. Second Amendment, and I'm not going to read the entire thing, but the first part of it here shows the amendment from last year. It did not pass, which was basically taking road frontage requirements from 250 to 400 feet. And this year, there was a lot of discussion about just putting it back on the ballot because it was unclear what it meant last year and how it would affect people, et cetera. So what we did this year was kind of do the same thing, just to clarify. And where it says the Second Amendment is this, halfway down the second page, you'll see the last sentence is the same as what we just had on the prior amendment that talks about anything prior to that date. This actually date should be changed to be this year's town meeting date, which is March 15th. And it would be, again, clarifying that if this were to pass, that it would be from that point forward. So I guess we can have the same discussion whether we need that or not, and does it clarify, et cetera. The legal is okay with it, so here we are. Any questions on just that, not the grandfathering so much, but the 250 to 400 frontage extension? Frank?
Yeah, I think you just clarified it. My only thing on this one was the date, is you can't retroactively say last year's date.
Yeah.
It has to be this year's date, because it didn't pass last year.
And obviously, the intent here is to keep the density lower in the town in conjunction with our master plan. And so we don't have a whole bunch of skinny lots and 300 driveways between here and the corner down on 109 here. Just as an extreme example. Other questions or thoughts on this?
Is the second part of the statement in addition to the first? So you'd have to have 400 on the road and 250 on the lake, or is it another case? So if you have 250, you don't have to have the 400. Just because it's a little unclear of if the one's adding additional
So if somebody
restrictions,
has 250 on the lake, they
but doesn't have 400, does that mean they're okay with this or not? Or do they have to have 400 plus 250?
400 road frontage.
And 250 on the lake. Okay. I just recommend maybe clarifying that the language.
Unless it was a legal lot as of the beginning.
Obviously.
Yeah, the road frontage takes precedence. You can't build on you can't subdivide a lot without the frontage
There are lots on the lake with
and build.
50-foot road frontage, but they have 250 on the lake, so that would not be a developable lot if it hasn't been a legal lot already.
I was just saying it might be good to clarify that the two are additive.
Add and,
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Steve?
So if I've got 50 acres and I've got 500 foot of frontage, I could only put 2 houses in there, right?
One.
it's 400 feet.
Unless you subdivided it and put a legal road in and divided it up such that you had the frontage on that.
Between frontage on the lake and frontage on the road.
I can't even think about it. Thank you.
You'd have to build a road and do a whole subdivision process
Mhm.
if you wanted more than one. Others? All right, again, the warrant question is here, but we will rewrite it to, it needs to be rewritten to add the and in there. Third Amendment. The Third Amendment is intended to clarify the permitted uses listed in Appendix E of the zoning ordinance. that they require a site plan review by the planning board. So this is the current issue that we had the hearing with Moose Mountain the other day, is that our legal folks have told us that a site plan review is required for anything that is listed in the permitted uses. There's been a lot of confusion around that. I think it's just an idea, the idea here is to clarify that. We've had the discussion even amongst the planning board. It says permitted uses, that means it's permitted, right? Well, no, not exactly. If there's a change of use, a site plan review needs to be done, according to our legal folks. And that's, Molly, you can testify that that's been an issue for several months. And this is really just an intent to clarify that. So the third amendment basically just says that applications for site plan approval are necessary and need to come through the planning board. Brett?
I'm just a little confused. You've got permitted uses, and then you've got special uses, I guess you call them. Conditional uses.
Yep.
So even permitted uses need to go through site plan review, even though it's already been permitted?
That's why there's confusion.
Yeah.
Yes, we are being told that by town council. And the rationale or the reason for that we've been given is it's a change of use, which is in our site plan review regulations, Article 5C says any change of use of a site or existing building. And above it, it says an applicant shall obtain a site plan review. Molly?
So what about the permitted uses that are to go through conditional use permits? Would those also require site plan? Where they are permitted uses, labeled as permitted uses, but as of Monday I was told they're conditional uses?
So, well, referring to RV parking, which is on the conditional use.
Just any of
As an
the
example.
continued permitted uses. So there's a second list that was originally conditional uses, has been changed this year from conditional to permitted, then went back to being gone, and then got reinstated as continued permitted
Yeah.
uses.
Well, the conditional always was there. There was a clerical error that it didn't show up on the website for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months until it was actually brought up at one of your meetings. So that conditional use piece was always there. And there's a list, a more extensive list. The conditional use items, I would say, are a little more detailed and there's more stuff going on there than, having an event or tubing, for example.
Right.
It's like mountain bike competition and some other things that are on there that might be a little bit more intense usage of the area. Hence, that requires a conditional use permit.
So is that in addition to the permit, to the site plan, or is that instead of the site plan?
I don't know the legal answer to that. I think it's probably just the conditional use permit.
If it's a conditional use permit, wouldn't those be conditional uses then, not permitted uses?
I don't understand your question.
They're labeled currently as permitted uses, continued. They're not under conditional uses.
Oh, yeah, I think we talked about
Continued,
this.
isn't that just because it went on to the next
Yeah,
page?
that's all that means.
That's all.
That's what continued means.
Normally it'd be one on top of the other, but it's next to it, so it
But
says
if it's
continued.
not the same as permitted, it should be labeled as something not permitted, correct?
It says conditional uses.
Yeah.
It says permitted uses continued. They no longer
Continued
say
is it's running
conditional
from
uses.
page to
It's
page.
just a page extension. Actually, the hard copy I have here does not have that on it. It just says Appendix E continued, which is probably what it just said.
But they used to be labeled conditional uses.
And we still have that.
They're not labeled conditional.
No, it says Appendix E continued,
And then conditional.
and then conditional uses.
Okay.
They just uploaded the latest, sorry, Dave Jenkins, second 62 East Pond Road. I was planning chair for a number of years, I was vice chair for a number of years as well. They were incorrect on the website. I spoke to Leah this week and asked her about the website. She verified that it was not updated on the website. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion is coming from, is people are looking on the website, they're getting mixed information from what the attorney said. So I understand where Molly's coming from, is it does say permitted uses continued, which would make me think that when I was on the planning board, when we had permitted uses, we had people come to us for events up on Moose Mountain at the time, and the selectmen sent them a cease and desist letter, and we reviewed our zoning and stated that it is a permitted use, that they don't have to cease and desist, that what they were trying to do up there was considered a club, it was a church event, and we permitted them to do that because our zoning said it was permitted. We didn't make them fill out special applications or anything like that. It was permitted use for that property. So I'm having a hard time with the amount of time that's been wasted on this whole permitted use and conditional use when the town voted to allow for permitted uses, and they actually went through and picked the permitted uses that they would allow up there. So I don't understand why we're going through all this process.
There is confusion, I grant you that. Frank.
I'm sorry, I was trying to read, catch up on the...
Sorry to call on you, but could you just give us the synopsis of the original list, the subcommittee and all that? I know you were on it and you had the list.
I'm sorry,
The subcommittee to create permitted uses and conditional uses. Can you just give us the 30 seconds?
Why are we debating this when we're just talking about this amendment that you're looking to put on the ballot?
We don't have to.
I'm just asking. I thought we were discussing the language of this, not debating the Monday, things from
No, I
Monday.
think it's just background.
Okay.
yeah.
Not now.
So the question is, why did we divide up conditional uses versus permitted uses? Is that the question?
Yes.
And that is that the uses that went into the conditional uses were those that we, just to be blunt, we thought had a chance to maybe get out of hand, and that we wanted to provide the town with the ability to look at each one of them as they came up and say, okay, that's a good idea, go ahead with it. Here are restrictions on it, like hours of operation, whatever, and go for it. But that it gave the town a little bit, because there was concern that if we just blanketed everything as a permitted use, that the operator at that time could just, potentially build a bigger operation than the town that the consensus of everybody that were those workshops felt was right for the town. So,
Okay.
now, did we do a good job dividing them up? That's what we'll find out as we go forward. But that was the rationale for doing it.
A little bit more.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, a little bit more intense usage. And the intent here is to clarify that permitted uses require site plan review.
Yeah.
We could add some language that says conditional uses don't require, if they get a permit, don't require it.
Yeah.
If public's interested in feedback along those lines, we'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
Brad?
I'm just curious why previously permitted uses are requiring a site plan review.
Yeah.
This list is not all approved. This is like a suggestion. This is a suggestion of what can be approved.
Well,
It's not like,
but the mountain has been there since the 60s.
and there's only been, we had a list of what was approved.
There were three things.
Three things.
Tubing, events, and I think golf or something. I can't remember.
But it was a function, it wasn't like it was a,
Function.
for some reason it was a function event.
So in 2010, there was a
So
site
out of all
plan
these
review.
things, those are the only three that flow through and follow the land. That's why we wanted to put this on the ballot to clear it up, because it is confusing, because it looks like, okay, this is all ready to go. And it's not. It's like, you can do this, maybe. It's almost like a suggestion list.
But tubing is already allowed?
Correct.
Tubing went
The
through a site
restaurant
plan
is
review in
already allowed.
2010.
No, it was like a function. That was like a function.
Special
A
events.
special events.
Special events.
Okay.
The decision said special events and tubing. And then when Mr. Bordeaux did the disc golf application, the decision was disc golf is allowed, 18-hole disc golf is allowed, and they restated the hours that were stated in the first site plan review. It's all very clear. Molly's seen it. We have a,
But I think that's what the confusion is that you look at this and you think like, oh, these are all permitted, so what's the problem?
No, I'm just curious what was permitted.
Okay.
I think it's very confusing, and
It should be permittable.
it's something that we're gonna work on in 2025, I hope. But there are things on this list that are, obviously, bird watching doesn't require a site plan review. Nobody's gonna complain about somebody going up there with binoculars. So this list is, with all due respect, kind of a mixed use list, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally.
Ed Gauthier, 2 Curry's Way. Point I'd like to make is that the list of permitted uses is not very succinct. It's kind of a broad brush of things that you can do. The purpose of the site plan review, in my opinion, is that the owners will provide specific detail defining what the ice skating rink is going to be. Ice skating is a permitted use. Where is the rink? How big is the rink? How much lighting is going to be there? The hours of operation. Those things are not defined as a permitted use. That's the purpose of the site plan review, is to allow the planning board to evaluate those uses and make a determination that it's good for the town, it's okay for the neighborhood, and that also drives the public hearing process that we went through the other day. So to not have a site plan review, even for permitted uses, is negligent, I think, on the part of the town.
Thank you.
Stay focused on redo the language and put permissible uses subject to site plan review.
Well, that's what.
This way, you don't, because it's using the past participle, it sounds like it's already been done. And if you say permissible, it implies that it still has to be, site plan review is still necessary.
Or just right on top here on that line, requires a site plan review. Right up here.
Yeah, you're right, it's the verb that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, Steve?
Hopefully it's within all this. Is there a fee for each site plan review?
There is. In the case of Moose Mountain, anything that was on the original application's been waived, but generally, yeah, it's $400, I think.
You can't look.
Bill Ziti, 41 Pipe Brook Road. I'm just curious, is there a specific requirement for how detailed the site plan needs to be through the town? Or is it just what you decide on when it's needed? I haven't heard anything about that, so I'm a little curious. They presented one. If it needs to be more specific, maybe you should have guided them in the area where it needed to be more specific before they spent the time doing what they did.
There is a specific checklist that we have to go through, which is an application and, I don't know, probably 25 pages or so of that Moose Mountain put in. So yeah, there is a specific checklist that we have to go through, and there's a minor and a major. The major requires a survey with a plat and all that kind of things. That's typically more for a like a subdivision, but for one of these permitted uses, it would be typically a minor.
So can I ask, was that provided to to Molly and the people there, that they had to be specific about it, or was it not provided to them?
No, we talked to Molly.
Okay, I'm just asking,
Multiple
you know.
times.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I was concerned about when I was planning board chair was legal repercussions for adjusting the zoning while there's litigation going on. Has this been a consideration at all when there's legal counsel involved in the decisions going on at Moose Mountain, that you're addressing specific criteria in the zoning that relates to them?
Legal has looked at this and agreed that we could have it on here. And again, the intent is just to clarify so that we don't have to go through numerous meetings again to come to the conclusion that a site plan review is required for a change of use.
You know as well as I do, attorneys look at things differently. They might. assuming that you're doing what they call discriminatory zoning.
Well, it's consistent with what we've been asking for all along.
Right, but it's convenient that it's this time of year that you're doing
Well, I
it.
mean, to be honest, whether we have it or we don't have it, we know what we need to do, right?
Correct.
So, we will ask to make sure that we're not creating a problem, because that's the last thing we want to do.
Yeah, we don't want these more legal charades that are going on right
We
now.
definitely don't.
Anything else on this amendment? Fourth amendment is just an addition to the zoning ordinance. It doesn't exist anywhere in the zoning ordinance that defines. We have some town definitions of various things, like what is a setback, what is a solar panel, et cetera. But if something is not defined, we just want to use the state definition. And if there's more than one definition at the state level, we use the more stringent one, which is according to the RSA 7614. Pretty straightforward, just to get some more definitions out there. Any questions on that? By the way, if we don't specify, use the state definition, the state law says go to the dictionary, don't go to the state definition. So we want to go to the state definition. Any comments on that? All right, I think we'll close out the public part of the hearing, and now the board can deliberate.
7:31.
Thank you. So we had, on Amendment 1, the may be developed language, we want to deal with that and make it say something like does not have to comply with.
Well, right after the date, just put does not need to comply.
Yep. Second Amendment, I don't think the only change is the date and adding the word "and" to clarify the Kingswood lots need 250 plus 400.
So where it says.
And the date
lots.
also.
And the date, yeah.
Right after lake, put in and 400 road frontage.
Must have 200 feet. And 400 feet, yes, we have it in there.
Yeah, we just say
It
it's
seems redundant, but it's
frontage on
not.
the lake along with the 400 feet.
Correct.
It used to be in order.
Yeah, along with or in.
It's at the 250 feet.
Yeah, it used to be in order.
Third Amendment regarding the
Changing that the permissible. And maybe just more clarification around the conditional use. Like, it's a permit only, it's not, doesn't initiate site plan review. Something
if that's
just
true,
that-
yeah.
Yeah, something
Okay.
to differentiate the two.
All right, we'll get language from legal on that. And I think the fourth one's
Yeah.
straightforward.
We could always, once the town approves the third one,
Yep,
we can add it to our appendix E, put it right up there on the top, right next to it.
right.
Requires a site plan review.
All right, so we need to vote. I guess, first I'll take, we can take, I guess we can take 1, 2, and 4 together. And if I could get a motion to vote that we're going to add those to the ballot, subject to that language change we talked about.
Yes.
I'll make an amendment that we accept the changes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so 1, 2, and 4, with those language changes, will be written up in the warrant language. And So on 3, I think we have to rewrite the amendment to, if we want to include conditional use in there, just clarify.
Well, yeah, especially because confusion of.
Or possible uses.
So I think we go back to legal on that and just ask. I don't know if we have to have another hearing with the new amendment. Don't think so. We can write the warrant article based on public feedback. Which I will check with legal. So maybe a motion to, can I get a motion to include some language regarding conditional uses and go back to Laura Spector and get that approved, and also find out if we need another hearing.
Motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I think that's it. All right, let's call it the hearing, public part of the hearing is closed. Let's close the hearing, and it's what time?
7:35.
7:35. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all this has to be done, right?
Yeah, we gotta, yeah, they gotta be by.
When did these have to be done?
Karen and Joanne need them right now. We already. So the sooner we get them done, the better.
That is.
Another requirement. If you want to do any changes to this,
Well, we spent money doing that.
you just vote it now, and get, probably, we already have a lawyer. We get them involved. If you speak right, then you make it 25 people. I think we'd probably see that.
It's like a small, it's a
I would think. They're gonna pay $2.50 an hour to go to the attorney.
No, we had,
If you don't know that, it says here, it's like this is all. If you're not, the average person. The average person.
I'll go back to the guys. I wish we